Good evening and welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Richards. Tonight I'll be finding my bearings with Christina McGilligan-Fell and Simon Yeo, here to talk about the great John Harrison, inventor of the chronometer that gave navigators longitude. And Dan Kemp will be here with all the region's latest games. But first, it's over to James Dunn for the news headlines.
Hello, in the headlines today, a new driving simulator could save young lives, and sporting stars of today and yesteryear meet sporting stars of the future. Work to build a controversial £8.4 million leisure centre in Grimsby will begin this summer with plans to open next year. Thousands of people signed a petition against the closure of Scartho Baths, which the new facility will replace. But North East Lincolnshire Council has held its course and appointed Interserve Construction to build the complex this week. The Cromwell Road facility will have an 8-lane, 25-metre pool, a health and fitness suite, studio space and a cafe. Meanwhile, the ice rink at Grimsby Leisure Centre on the same site remains closed after the cooling system malfunctioned 3 weeks ago. A new driving simulator could help save lives in North East Lincolnshire. The Road Safety Partnership has bought a high-tech hazard perception driving test, which creates a different set of scenarios every single test. The partnership says the fact that it seems like a computer game breaks down barriers between safety officers and young people, one of their target audiences. It's not cheap at £10,000, but the Road Safety Partnership believe it's a price worth paying if it helps make young people more safety conscious.
We say what is the cost of a life. The average cost of fatality in this country is 1.7 million. When taken into consideration everything to go with it, emergency services attending, then you've got repairs to the road service should the need be, we've got the cost of insurances, lost to local businesses, it all mounts up. So if just one young person listens to me on this, identifies potential hazards and therefore makes them a little bit more aware when they're on the road, money well spent.
Just made me think how to drive really. How not to drive.
I think there are advantages because you then don't have to go out and buy driving lessons, but then there's also disadvantages because you can't know the real experience of driving.
Cleaning product company McBride has announced it will cut around a quarter of its UK workforce, around 400 jobs. The company makes products such as washing powders and dishwasher tablets sold in 4 of the UK's biggest supermarket chains. It's feared the cuts will hit local factories in Barrow and Hull. The Environment Agency has been dredging the River Freshney for the last week. It's part of an annual schedule to stop the build-up of weeds which block natural drainage to prevent floods. We spoke to Glyn Ellis from the Environment Agency about what they've been up to in Grimsby.
Our weed control programme starts in July, runs through to about end of October, early November. And weed control is an operation that we carry out to remove the weed that builds up in the rivers over the summer months in preparation for the winter months where we get higher flows that can disturb the weed and have it build up against structures and then create flooding. It's a routine operation. There's no one river has a bigger problem than others. What we do find is lower flows in the summer and warmer temperatures exacerbate the weed growth.
An exhibition looking at the effects of the First World War on North Lincolnshire opens today. For King and Country features exhibits about life in the county as well as featuring some of the people involved in the war, including the tales of the Markham brothers from Roxby who were both killed. Held in North Lincolnshire Museum, it's part of the Joining Up the Humber Museums, an exciting initiative to get people moving around the regions.
Joining Up the Humber was formed in April and it's very important we've joined with Hull and East Riding councils and their museum services. So the idea was to market all the exhibitions that First World War related together in one package. So we do have a Joining Up the Humber website and a booklet with everything in there. So the idea is to get visitors to move around the regions a little bit more, to experience the other exhibitions and activities that they're supporting.
It's your own heritage and background is very important, and if you're from North Lincolnshire and you have an interest in where you live and where you come from and the history of your own area, I think we're doing the best job we can to really show the First World War in North Lincolnshire.
That runs until July 2015. And finally, local students are showcasing the sporting best in front of Olympic athletes in Grantham today. Students from Edward Heneage, Havelock Academy and Humberston Academy are taking part in the David Ross Academy Trust Summer Games. In the crowd will be sporting stars including Dame Kelly Holmes, Winter Games medalist Jenny Jones and Summer Games gold medalist Mark Lewis Francis. And our sports reporter Dan Kemp is there today, so look out for interviews from the stars young and old here on Estuary TV. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Bye for now.
John Harrison's marine chronometer allowed sailors to calculate their distance east or west on the planet by letting them compare their local time to the true time in Greenwich or some other starting point if they were foreigners. It was one of the great inventions of the 18th century. Christina McGilligan-Fell is here to join me now with Simon Yeo talking about the latest Harrison celebrations. Both of you, many thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Many thanks for turning up on time.
Good to be here. We try.
What's going on in Barrow on Sunday?
In Barrow on Sunday we have the celebratory 300 years of the tercentenary of the Longitude Act of 1714 to present day 2014. We've got the marvellous band from Barton playing, which is very accomplished. I believe they're the first three in the country. We've got some reenactments from various people throughout the country who'll be coming along dressed up in the 18th century and doing cooking, and we've got a surgeon and lots of good fun altogether.
And Simon, there's a connection with the bells and John Harrison as well.
There is a connection with the bells, yes, and John's younger brother James. Bell frames almost seems to have been their core business, really. All over the country they were doing bell frames. And in fact, James had a bell foundry eventually. So there's lots of places, and in Grimsby and all over Yorkshire that they did bell work on.
John Harrison's achievement was to create the chronometers, ending up with, I think, his fourth model, wasn't it? The Harrison 4?
It's popularly known as H4, yes.
Which meant that you could know the time accurately at your starting point. For British sailors, that would usually have been Greenwich, so that you can compare noon wherever you are on the oceans locally, and that way you can calculate your distance east or west.
It was actually Portsmouth that they took the time from when they went to Jamaica. Harrison only did one sea voyage because he was notoriously the worst sailor in the world.
But this navigational breakthrough was absolutely crucial to trade, safety and global travel in the 18th century.
It was. Without that, hence the Longitude Act of 1714 on the incident that took place in 1707 with Sir Cloudesley Shovel. We lost nearly 2,000 men in 4 minutes. So from that, Queen Anne had to act with something very serious. There was a huge problem.
And there was a prize, the Longitude Act that we're celebrating this year, that was a prize of a large, about £20,000, a very large amount of money in those days, for anybody who could crack this crackpot idea of discovering how to measure longitude. Harrison's connection with this local area was quite tight.
It's very significant. Harrison, born in Yorkshire, and probably the age of 4 moved into Barrow, would have had opportunities to go into Hull, perhaps heard of the Longitude Prize in Hull, realising that being a accomplished clockmaker, carpenter, musician, bell ringer, that it was all there with him. And could he possibly find, could he solve this problem? Yes, he could, and he actually proved it with H1. But he wanted to improve it. He knew that there was significance into refining further the H1 into then becoming the H2, into the H3.
And he was working on this as well as being in London. He was working this in Barrow, in Barton, in Hull. I think he had a Grimsby connection as well.
Yeah, his brother James. Now James often is eclipsed by John Harrison. James Harrison being making bell frames at the time, had huge importance to assisting his brother in the actual carpentry of the clocks. I'm sure Simon has more technical.
Well, the story of longitude really starts with Brocklesby at 1722, and James is 11 years younger than John. And that's really the time that they do something that all designers do, and that's to...
that was the creation of a stable carriage for a clock, wasn't it, at Brocklesby?
This was on the sort of gentrified stables, yeah.
Right. No, I meant stable, as in it didn't rock around too much.
But that's the significance, though. That's where it all starts, in 1722 in Brocklesby. That's when Harrison was commissioned by Lord Yarborough to do the stable turret clock that, again, Harrison knew that it was important.
Harrison had trouble getting his money on the prize when he eventually came through and created the way of finding longitude. There's a new longitude prize, a modern longitude prize. Would you, Simon, perhaps you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yes, it's difficult to find an analogue from 1714 to now because it was so momentous to find longitude. As you said, it enabled an age of discovery and trade and ideas and goodness knows what.
So what ideas are we looking for in the 21st century
The list is very much a list, I think, of its decade, and you've got a public element of voting for all these different things. Personally, we went for water, actually, but...
for water, for clean water, the easy.
And it's well known that if you give people clean water and educate women, it's the two best things you can actually do. But it's not just about technology on these things. I mean, you've got to realise that this is about politics and deployment of things, and you've got cultural and religious pressures.
But other world problems that could be compared to that longitude problem of the 18th century, that the Longitude Foundation is looking at: water, as you say, transport and energy for transport, clean energy, various cures for diseases and genetic things like that. So there are all the sort of problems that face the 21st century. That are they comparable to longitude in the 18th?
The global warming, that in itself, it touched on it with flight, but I would have liked to have actually seen a category independent from flight being global warming. I think that's so huge, it's such a problem. It can't be ignored, and every opportunity we have, we must bring that to the forefront of people's minds. We do have an enormous problem with global warming, with water, and this to me is where I ask the £10 million that's been put aside for the present day Longitude 14 prize, how much is that in comparison to what's needed in the research for global warming, for science, for the water aspect? It's a great amount of money. Compare it to a huge lottery win today. There's never enough money pumped into science.
Well, it's £10 million. How does that compare to £20,000 in the 18th century?
Well, that's difficult to say. I mean, £20,000, that was only the top prize. There was a 15 and a 10,000.
The event is being held at Barrow on Sunday the 6th of July, and if you wanted to get in touch with your organisation, there's the johnharrisonfoundation.org.
Yes, it is.
To go through there with Facebook contacts.
And it starts at 1:30 till 5 p.m. Everybody's welcome.
Christina, Simon, thank you very much for coming along, and good luck with the event. Now it's over to Dan Kemp with all the local sports.
Thank you, Hugh. We'll start with the football and the latest incomings at our local clubs. As we reported last week, Hull City are on the verge of signing Norwich City wide man Robert Snodgrass for a reported £7 million. The only hold-up at present is loyalty bonuses owed to Snodgrass by the Canaries, as he didn't request the transfer. Scunthorpe United are close to signing striker Lyle Taylor. Taylor spent the second half of last season on loan at Partick Thistle in Scotland after failing to break into the Sheffield United side. In Rugby League, Hull FC drew 20-all away to the Wakefield Wildcats on Sunday afternoon. Kirk Eamon scored 2 tries, including the decisive equaliser late on at the Rapid Solicitors Stadium. Hull Kingston Rovers have terminated the contract of fullback Wayne Eulogia due to repeated breaches of club discipline. The former North Queensland Cowboys man joined the Robins on an 18-month contract earlier this season, but made only 3 appearances. In golf, Cleethorpes' Holly Clyburn registered an impressive second place at the Italian Ladies Open in Perugia, just 1 shot behind winner Florentina Parker. In boxing, former Hull City and Grimsby Town footballer Curtis Woodhouse was defeated by Willie Limond on majority points decision after 12 rounds and lost his British light welterweight title. Woodhouse is now expected to retire for a second time. Finally, the Rapid Solicitors Hull Stingrays have confirmed the signing of Canadian forward Corey Tanaka for the 2014-15 Elite League campaign. Player coach Omar Pasha has said he's very strong on the puck and offensively gifted. And as ever, you can find a full round of our cricket results from the York and District Senior League and the Lincolnshire Senior League on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today on the sport. Back to you, Hugh.
That's all we have time for tonight, I'm afraid. If you have any stories for us, then do please email news@estuary.tv or contact us via our Twitter or Facebook pages, or give us a call on 01472 315561. Until next time, goodbye.